Following principles are key to developing and using powerful and responsive assessment. Base assessments on standards for learning. Represent performances of understanding in authentic ways. Embed assessments in curriculum instruction. Provide multiple forms of evidence about student learning. Evaluate standards without unnecessary standardization. And involve local educators in designing and scoring assessments. The purpose of an accommodation is to allow these students access to the test content without changing the accuracy of the test so that the results are comparable to those of students who did not need accommodations. Accommodations depends on a number of factors, such as disability, age, the nature of the assessment, and the skill or subject being assessed. Table 11.7 on 326 would be a great resource about possible accommodations. Attraction of state tests are that they are standardized, perceived as objective, and inexpensive in comparison to performance assessments. Validity refers to whether an assessment item measures what they intend to measure. All too frequently, test items do not measure what the test maker had in mind. Reliability is an equal important technique aspect of a high-quality assessment. Reliability has to do with the consistency of the information about student learning, that the results from repeated use of each assessment item or task are the same. If two students who have learned the same amount complete the same assignment, do they receive identical scores? If they do, then the item has high reliability. If the two students with the same level of learning receive different scores, then the item is not consistent or reliable. PACT project is a consortium of 30 colleges and universities in California that have developed a teacher performance assessment. Passing this assessment is required to receive a preliminary teacher accreditation. The assessment package includes a teaching event, which is a model after the portfolio that experienced teachers complete for the National Board certification. They complete the assessment near the end of their teacher education program. During student teaching, they plan a unit of instruction that includes assessments. At the end of the unit, they analyze what their students have learned. They also identify two students in the class with different instruction challenges. One of them must be English language learner. They include 3 samples of each student's work to show their learning. With the samples of the student work, the candidate responds to 6 different questions. Describe the student as a person and learner. Discuss what each work sample illustrates. Describe what learning progress you can see across the samples. Describe how you assessed each response. Discuss what you believe supported or impeded the student's progress. Discuss what you have done or will do as a teacher to build on what the student has already accomplished. Teacher work sample. The TWS requires teacher candidates to demonstrate their ability to assess, plan, and instruct in the standard-based educational system and impact positively on student learning. Growth model is a statistical model that measures students' academic achievement over time at a school level. With this model, the analysis of year-to-year test scores include only those students that attended the school for that period of time. The value-added model, a statistical model that measures student growth over a period of time by comparing students' performances on the previous exam with the performance on the current exam. The value-added model begins and looks at the measuring of the student growth over a period of time. However, the interpretation focused on whether a particular school class student made more or fewer gains than the average, that is, the added value. When the students of a teacher or school score at a higher level than predicted, the inference is that the school added extra value. Multiple measures. An important concern related to making evaluated judgments about students, schools, and teachers is that most of the time the summative decision is made on one single score. On this one test, legislators decide on the cut score, which is the test score that is high enough to be judged as passing. Test takers depend on whether they score above or below that score. A more responsible way to judge a passing is to use multiple assessments. Any gatekeeping type of decision should be based on several measures and different types of measurements, not a single test score. Anytime you are making a summative judgment about a student, a school, or a district, you should base it on multiple sources of data. In a way, we are already using one national test in the U.S., the National Assessment of Education Progress, NAEP. This test is given to 4th, 8th, and 5th graders in sample schools in each state. This test assesses students' proficiency in math, reading, science, writing, art, civics, economics, geography, and U.S. history. The purpose is to make it possible for policymakers and educators to view national comparison of achievement of students. Random samples of students within each state are picked. Design of this test allows inferences to be made about student achievement to be drawn only from each state as a whole. NAEP data cannot be used to draw inferences about students' achievement in a particular school or district. Most schools and districts now have database systems of students' information that collect and report student assessments results in a format that is easy to access. Companies such as Northeast Evaluation Association, NWEA, or Pluto Learning, and Tungsten Learning have systems that allow teachers to regularly assess students against state and district standards. These systems maintain the record of each student and are able to track students' growth from year to year. These systems can also help in designing tests and other knowledge and skills, such as critical thinking and problem solving that in the past were measured on the state tests. Teachers are wondering how other countries are performing so well, so people have been sent over to study curriculum, instructional strategies, teachers, with the goal of improving student performance in the next rounds of tests in future years. All countries show achievement gaps based on family, social, economic status. Every 4 years, the TIMSS Center tests the math and science skills of students at 4th and 8th grade. More than 50 countries participate. U.S. students do fairly well in the TIMSS, scoring above the 2011 average in math and science at both the 4th and 8th grade levels. Every 3 years, the PISA measures math, science, and reading skills that students learn in and out of schools with a focus on application of what they have learned to real-life situations. The test is taken by students who are 15 years old in industrialized countries. The OECD mission is to promote policies that will improve the economic and social well-being of people around the world. U.S. students do not perform near the top on problem solving. In 2011 reading literacy studies, several countries scored higher on average than did the U.S. students. In 2007 science assessment, U.S. students were ranked 21st of 32 participating countries. The PIRLS test literacy and information skills of 4th graders every 5 years. Between the first administration of 2006 and the second, 2011, the average reading scores for 4th graders students increased in some countries, Hong Kong, Singapore, and the U.S. Federal government has mandated that students be tested annually. Students' test results for each school are compiled by each state and reported to the public. Schools are named and ranked in newspapers, and sharp questions are asked about those schools that are not meeting adequate yearly progress. Testing becomes high stakes when the assignment of rewards and sanctions is determined by testing. High-performing schools may receive additional funds. In some districts, teachers and principals receive salary bonuses. On the other side, some states provide assistance to schools that are in need of improvement. In some states, entire school districts that are designated as low-performing can be taken over by the state. In some class and schools, teachers stop the regular instruction for weeks or more to help students prepare for the tests. Cheating ranges from teachers telling students how to answer specific test items to teachers, principals, and school administration actually changing students' responses on the individual tests, as they happened several years ago in Atlanta, Georgia. Some schools have encouraged students such with learning disabilities to stay home on the day of the test. Some states might have little overlap with various sets of content standards and emphasis in district curriculum materials. Time spent on preparing for high-stake tests reduces the time available to teach related materials in other subjects. Teaching to the test often means that the development of critical thinking and higher-order thinking skills is neglected. Another issue is balancing time teachers spend on topics that are likely to be on the test versus instructional time spent on the rest of the curriculum. Having the same test is not appropriate for all students, schools, and states. There has been an emphasis that has been placed on the importance of addressing individual differences and emphasizing that all students do not develop at the same rate. Now policymakers are mandating that one test be given to all students at a certain grade level at a specific time. A more authentic test takes more time than constructing multiple choice or true and false items. Deriving scoring devices for authentic tests is added work too. Holistic scoring entails first developing a scoring rubric and then examining each student's response in detail to determine a total score. NCLB and ESSA has mandated to desegregate test data. Schools, districts, and states can no longer ignore the various subgroups in schools. Schools, teachers, districts, and states have to break out the performances of students by social economic status, ethnicity, race, first language, disability, migrant status, and gender. Also, performance by students from each of these groups must be reported on schools and districts' annual report cards.